Anta, mapastem tsikason. So hello, and today I'm going to be showing you how to make namisti. That's dried fish, and we're going to be using a tikameg for this demonstration because it's one of the more preferred fish for us to dry as nihiawak. We just love the dried making namisti out of tikameg because it dries the best. It's not a really fatty fish, so it dries really well. Now, traditionally, there was a good reason why we make our dried fish, smoke them and dry them. And it was a simple fact is that we didn't have refrigerators back then. So in order for us to make sure that we had our food available to us and that if we caught it in large quantities, we're not wasting any. And it's easy for storage if we dried it. Now with a lot of people, they just smoke the fish just to get that flavor of the smoke in there. But some people completely dry the fish completely so that it's dried and it's easy. You can store it for a long time and keep it for a long time. But today we're going to be showing you how we traditionally make the mistake using tikameg. I'm going to scale it and then show you how we cut them to put them on a smoke rack. Then we're going to show you how we make a simple smoke rack for smoking this, because we're not going to completely dry this, but we are going to smoke it just to get that flavor in there. And we'll talk a little bit about smoking and the flavors when we get to putting it out over the fire for smoking. But for now, since we just got our whole tikameg here, our whole whitefish, haven't done anything with it yet. We got it straight from the water, so we've got to first thing we've got to do is scale it. So with scaling, so I've got my fillet knife here, which is a long, thin blade knife. When you're doing stuff like filleting fish, you want a really thin knife. And the reason they use a really thin knife is that you can feel the blade throughout, especially the tip of the blade and where you're cutting. And you could do fine cutting with it because it's a thin blade and you can feel it through the knife. Whereas if you're using a thicker knife to try and do that, you can't feel where the knife is going there. So it's really hard to fillet the fish or any meat for that matter using a thicker knife because you just don't feel those little vibrations or little when you touch the bones and stuff. Not like you could with a long, thin knife. So of course we're going to start scaling it. First start from the tail and then scale up. And with the whitefish, the reason our elders really like them is they are actually one of the easier fish to scale. Because the scales, it doesn't take a lot of work to get those scales to come off. But we want to get all the scales off right up until the front gills here, right from the tail. We make sure we don't miss that stomach as well, because their scales are all throughout the whole body, not just on the sides and the back, but even on the stomach here. So we'll do the other side the same, scaling it. And make sure I get the back as well, along the backbone. So it does get messy, so you want to make sure you got a place that, because these scales go flying all over the place. Now even with the scales, especially with the whitefish, because they've got such big scales, people like to use them and dry them and wash them and then dry them, and they use them for artwork, for like fish scale art and stuff like that. All you do is put them in water and clean them really well, and then you set them out to dry. And that's how they do their fish scale art. Like I said, especially with the tikameg, because they've got really big scales that are a little easier to wash and use in that kind of artwork. So this one is completely scaled now. So the things that I did in preparation is I made sure I've got a bin of water because I'm going to need to wash this, because you can see all the scales and slime from the fish is all over here. So now I'm ready to cut it in preparation for the meat steak. So the first thing I do is I cut out these lower belly fins here, because once I start filleting it for putting on the rack, these will actually mess me up when I get to that part of the belly. So I need to make sure that I cut those off. Otherwise it'll really mess me up when I'm... So I just cut, not too deep, just enough to get the fins off of there, those belly fins. You see I didn't even go into the stomach. Now because we're basically cutting the whole fish and trying to spread it out as much as possible, I'm not going to be cutting from this side. A lot of people will cut this side first and then take out the insides if you're cutting them for filleting or something, or if you're just going to eat it whole by putting it in the oven. But for neme steak, we don't cut here because we're going to be actually cutting along the backbone. And might be a little hard to see from that side because I am right-handed. But I'm going to start with a cut right through to the bone, the backbone here on this side. Then I'm going to carefully cut along the backbone all the way towards the tail. So you'll see I make my first cut not through all of the bones yet, just to make my guiding cut along the backbone. So you see that the cut that I've made along following the backbone there. And I'm going to go right through almost to the tail. Once I get to that fin in the back, I'm actually going to poke my knife through and you'll see it there. And I'm going to keep going and I'm going to stop there because I'm going to be using the backbone. I don't want to cut through because this backbone, you're going to see it's actually going to help me while I'm making my neme steak to put on the rack. So again, same thing other side. I cut completely through right to the backbone again. And again, I'm going to make a line following along the backbone here. Carefully past that back fin. I could feel my knife along the backbone. And now I'm going to poke through here. And I'm going to stop right about 1.5 inches, 2 inches, or 3 fingers away from the end of the tail, where the tail ends there, just to leave that for holding. Now, when I've got it open like this, you'll see that there aren't that many bones on the tail end, but as I'm cutting through further, I'm actually cutting through those smaller bones, and you could hear them cutting. That first set of bones, but now I could see the ribs in there. So I'm going to the rib bones. I'm not going to cut through those, I'm cutting along them. So again, I'm just going to get past those first set of holding bones to get to those rib bones. Now from here, you'll see I've gone past that. This is where those first set of bones were. I've cut through those. Now my knife is just going to go along the ribs, those stomach bones and rib bones. Carefully peeling it as I'm following right against these rib bones or stomach bones all the way to the front up here. Following right along, and you'll see I come to where the stomach cavity actually is. And again here. Now I'm going to stop there. You'll see how I've opened it right up to the stomach here. So this is where that stomach fins were here. And I forgot I got to cut this little fin off too, because that one gets in the way. So I'm just going to do that now. There we go. So now I'm going to do the same thing to the other side. Cutting along that backbone, along these stomach bones, right through to the stomach, so that the stomach opens up, and you'll see the whole stomach is opened up there. So I'll do the same thing to the other side. And you can hear those first set of bones being cut through before I follow along the ribs. And again, following right along those stomach bones. Again, that's where your thin knife really helps, because you can feel without cutting through those bones, just following them and using them as a guide to cut along them. Again, right through to the stomach. And you'll see I've got almost the whole thing cut out there like this. So I've got the whole fish, both sides are cut out. With this, I'm actually going to be using this backbone here. So what I'm going to do is I've made sure that I've cut through to the neck, and I'm going to cut right along the backbone and cut all of that insides and everything out of there, and those stomach bones right along that, following that backbone. And the backbone is actually pretty thick. It's not all that thin. And I'm going to go right to where I left my cut at the tail. So I'm going to break this off here now at the head, the backbone. Head is off. And I've got this. Now, with a lot of people, you like to cut this skin off, but we're just going to leave it because we can pull it off later after it's smoked. And when I go to smoke my fish, I'm actually going to hang it using this backbone. So I'm going to hang it sort of like this on my pole, and it'll hang over with that side opening up the fish. So that's why I keep that backbone on. So of course now I've got to wash this, give it a quick rinse, wash off all the slime and any other blood and scales. After it's nice and clean, try and get as much of the water off as I can. And that tikkameg is ready to put on the rack for drying. See, I've got all of the meat on here, and I've got very little left here. Just the guts and the head and the fins. Nice and clean. Nice meat on both sides. Almost the whole fish is there. So that is how we cut our tikkameg to make in preparation to turn it into namistik. So now I'm going to finish cutting these, and then we're going to show you how to put together a really quick smoke rack for smoking the fish. And we'll get smoking it. So I finished cutting my namistik, tikkameg, and you could see how I've cut them all the same way, so that we're in preparation for hanging on my smoking rack. But before we do that, I wanted to talk about this here, because occasionally I get elders that ask for the heads, because some elders do like fish head soup, so they will ask for that sometimes. However, I haven't had any elders lately asking for that, or asking me to save them for them. So regardless of that, nothing will go to waste, absolutely nothing. Everything here will go to waste, and you'll see in some of my other videos that I'm going to be making, you'll see these being used. Because I'm going to take these, I'm going to put them in a bag all together, and I'm actually going to let them spoil a little bit and use them as trapping bait. Because with stuff like lobster and all the other small fur-bearing animals, they love the smell of fish. So if I just bag this, leave it outside and let it spoil a little bit, not to let it completely spoil, but just so it starts to smell, that'll be my trapping bait for this winter. And you'll see me using that when we do the trapping videos. This is what the bait will be, chunks from these. But like I said, absolutely nothing is going to be going to waste. Every little piece of these fish is going to be used in some way to help sustain me and my family. And this is the way we do it as Nihiawak. We don't waste anything. We don't take anything for granted. We always appreciate that these Tikamega, they've given their lives to us, to give us the mistake, and they're going to continue to give us support by helping us with our trapping. So I'm going to be bagging this and putting it aside until trapping seasons come, which is any time now, because we are very late in the fall. So I'll be switching into trapping, so this couldn't have come at a perfect time for me in preparation for trapping season. But I'm going to bag this, and we're going to show you how to put together an agawan, or a drying rack to put these fish on.